Our Law and Justice segment tonight, Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents this week arrested 70 illegal immigrants in Texas and Oklahoma, all as part of a 3-day operation. President Trump continues to take criticism for his hardline position on immigration, but according to a new investigation, things at the border are even more dangerous than we originally thought. Joining me now from the Independent Journal Review, Justin Charters. Justin, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
All right, Justin, so what we're up against here is this narrative from the left that says building a wall, securing our border, that's xenophobic. That means you hate Mexicans. That means, you know, you're probably a white supremacist. And the narrative coupled with, or that narrative coupled with the idea that illegal immigrants commit fewer crimes in our country. That's what Democrats tell us. Factually, that's inaccurate. Illegal immigrants are about 3% of our population. They commit about 13.6% of crimes. You did an investigation on what happens at the border, what kind of crimes go on there that no one really sees. What did you find?
There's a lot of things that happen, I should say, by the border, by border towns, even deeper into the United States. And some of it's very common knowledge, human smuggling, human trafficking. But some of the things that really opened my eyes when I talked to Special Agent in Charge Frank Montoya, who he was appointed by Director Comey when he was still the FBI director to be the Special Agent in Charge in Seattle, Washington. And they even had cases where migrants were executed cartel style in the cornfields. And that's in Washington state, by the border, Canada. We're not talking by the border in Mexico. And that they were trafficking women, young girls, as far as the oil fields in North and South Dakota. And there's some other really disturbing things that happen that the cartels do that a lot of people don't have a lot of knowledge on. Some of it, yes, is underreported. Some of it's just not very common knowledge. I didn't get extremely specific in that report, and that's in the interest of protecting the people that I interviewed and the things that they told me. But there's some just extremely, really terrible things that are happening. The cartels really, essentially, Mexico is a narco-terrorist state. It is run, it has a functioning government, you could say. But even if you talk to people in Mexico, so I talked to several people in different cities in Mexico, whether it was Tijuana or Tampico, whatever other state, and you talk to them and you try to be polite and you say stuff like, well, yeah, you live in a pretty nice area. And they say, no, it's not a nice area. It's not safe. I'm afraid to go in this area. I'm afraid to go out at night, because the way it works in a lot of those areas that the cartels control is if you don't do what the cartel wants you to do, then you're going to be either in big trouble in terms of trying to find types of employment, or they can just take things to the next level because they have absolutely no value on human life.
Right, and one of the shocking things, I mean, I read your piece from top to bottom. One of the most shocking things was how far-reaching into the United States these crime organizations, these cartels, how far their reach is. I mean, you talked about, the Dakotas, you talked about up in Seattle, Washington. Some of these cartels have reached as far as New York State. This is coming from the Mexican-American border. These cartels come over and they have reach up into New York State. It's shocking. And you're right. I mean, we hear about stories about kidnapping. We hear stories about human trafficking, not to downplay how horrible those crimes are, but some of these other things that you wrote about, I mean, that some of these cartels have ties to Islamist terror groups. Talk to me about that.
So there's been just I didn't mention anything other than Hezbollah, because that's the only one that there's actually been credible investigation, credible this, credible that. In the intelligence community, there's, some reports about other stuff, but you don't talk about that unless it's verified in a bunch of different levels. So Hezbollah still is Iran's terrorist army. And, there was drug trafficking that Hezbollah was doing, which is kind of funny, right? Because you have Hezbollah that's supposed to be like this purist Islamic jihadist military. And here they are trafficking drugs, right? Yeah, they have relationships with certain groups, and they help them acquire weapons that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. They're able to smuggle very I should say military-grade weapons from the United States into Mexico. And one thing I didn't mention, you talked about New York, you talked about Washington State. the cartel's reach is global. It's in Europe. It's everywhere.
Right, which is, I mean, I guess not surprising given the amount of drugs, the amount of human trafficking, the amount of arms trafficking, the amount of money that pours in and out of those cartels. Justin, we're almost out of time, but the people that fight this, the men and women who are in our customs enforcement agencies, border patrol agencies, the local sheriffs in the local towns, the border towns, you said there's a lot of corruption in one place specifically, and that is in the sheriff's office of some of these border towns. Tell me about that.
So as far as that comment that was given to me, I actually can't really expand on that comment. But I did verify through other people that I interviewed that there is, corruption at that local level. And the main reason there's the corruption there is because in a lot of these border towns, people don't make a lot of money. And it's easy for the cartel to say, hey, well, we weigh our money by the ton. We want this guy to do X, Y, Z. And they can, get that. They can also take people from Mexico, put them in the United States, and get them into border patrol. It's happened before. There's been cases about that as well. So.
Shocking. It's absolutely shocking. Great reporting, Justin. Thanks for coming on the show.